What's up, everybody? Drake here with part 3 of the Breath of the Wild discussion with Game Over Jesse and She Says. Last episode, we discussed the possible floating island, returning towns, villages, races, and enemies. In this episode, we will be discussing timeline placement, multiplayer, possible DLC, and what to expect from the next Zelda game after Breath of the Wild. This episode has a lot of humor in it, so be sure to stick around. It'll be a lot of fun, and trust me, would I lie to you?
Where do you think this game falls on the official timeline? Because we have the Koroks, which relate it to the timeline with the Wind Waker. We have the Wolf Link, which ties it into the Twilight Princess timeline. Because during one of the interviews for Twilight Princess HD, Aonuma mentioned that while you play this game, you will be reminded of Twilight Princess. And then everything is kind of in a state of decay, and some things match up. Like if you look at the artwork for the Master Sword at the end of the official trailer, it's sitting on the pedestal in the forest, which we presume is the Lost Woods, and there are 3 flowers sticking up, and these are the same flowers that if you look at the artwork for A Link to the Past, the Master Sword is on a pedestal in the middle of the woods, and there are these 3 same flowers in the same 3 locations. So we have little tidbits of information that could put this Zelda game in any of the timelines. So where do you think it fits?
Without doing as much research as many other fans have, to me it gives me the impression that it's just before Zelda 1, because if you looked into Zelda 1's story, it's basically post-apocalyptic Hyrule. That's why you don't have any villages. That's why Ganon already has Princess Zelda and all that. It's because Ganon won in that scenario. And this game seems to prop it up like Ganon is either pretty much just won or is in the process of winning. And that's why it makes me feel like it's a precursor to Zelda 1.
Yeah, I feel almost the same way. I think it's in the Downfall timeline. Not actually sure which, but I'm pretty sure it's before maybe A Link to the Past or very close to Zelda 1, is my theory there. Because there's a lot of elements about Calamity Ganon that look very similar to Link's Awakening. That's why the villain to Link's Awakening. And I know that's not really directly influencing the timeline, but you know, it's a detail that, you know, caught my attention.
Right.
I got a quick question. Do you think that Ganon is going to be Ganondorf, or is it going to be like Pig Wizard Ganon from the older games?
I think we will see each of those. I think this Calamity Ganon reminds me of, I believe it's in the Wind Waker, when there's that form of Ganon that almost looks kind of snake-like that's flying around.
Oh yeah.
I think this might be a weird version of that, since Wind Waker was designed using this engine before Breath of the Wild was completed. Maybe that influenced the design. They were just trying to look for an almost dragon or snake-like form of Ganon that can fly around this castle. And I think we're also going to get that beast form. Like maybe that's just the form that keeps you from getting inside the castle, but somehow if you're able to destroy it, you'll fight actual Ganondorf, who then changes into Ganon, because most Zelda games do have those different forms of the boss. Like we have the different stages of Majora and Majora's Mask. We have beast form and human form of Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time. We have it in Twilight Princess. We have it in we don't have the beast form of Ganon in the Wind Waker, but we do have that weird phantom form or whatever it's called. And then even in I believe Skyward Sword is really the only one where there's not different stages to the main boss fight.
Yeah. There are parts of the main boss fight in the Imprisoned, but
right.
That really counts.
Yeah. So I think we will see like each form of Ganon or Ganondorf being represented.
What about and his name is escaping me right now, so probably gonna get it in the The last boss in Skyward Sword.
Demise.
Demise, yeah. Do you think he's going to have any involvement? Because they put a lot of stock into him in Skyward Sword. It would be kind of weird for them not to involve him in any sort of way into this new one. I mean, at least I'd imagine.
Maybe.
I would personally like to see both him and Ganondorf being represented. Like maybe the beast form of Ganondorf does turn into a Demise lookalike. Because even if it doesn't look exactly like Demise in Skyward Sword, Ganondorf in the Wind Waker is a lot chubbier than he is in Ocarina of Time. And then in Twilight Princess, Ganondorf looks a lot more muscular. So if Demise is represented in this game, maybe he could potentially look different as well.
It's hard for me to say which, because Breath of the Wild is supposed to be the sequel to all relevant Zelda games, like when they made Twilight Princess, it was clearly made as a sequel to both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And when Wind Waker came out, it was kind of a sequel to both of those games. And Twilight Princess came out, it was just like it was supposed to be both a precursor and the sequel to all those games. But now we got Breath of the Wild, and it's basically a sequel to all of those games because they took inspiration from so many of the HD remakes and remasters of the games. So it's kind of borrowing ideas from a whole many different playhouses, and it's kind of hard to say which, if Demise is going to play a role at all.
Yeah, that's how I look at this game, because we do see the elements from all of the major Zelda games in this game. So it's hard to really pick, like, for certain which characters, enemies, races, bosses, or where it fits on the timeline, because logically it could fit almost anywhere.
Right. But to me, there's a lot of fertile ground there that says post Wind Waker. So
yeah.
Who knows?
So the final question that I want to ask you guys about Breath of the Wild is when Breath of the Wild, or as it was known back then, Zelda Wii U was first mentioned, it was during the Nintendo Direct where they first announced Wind Waker HD. And one of the things that they mentioned about this Zelda game was that they wanted to change the conventions of what we thought of as a Zelda game, which meant dungeon progression, which we've seen, because now there's 100 mini dungeons and maybe 4, possibly more actual dungeons that, from what they're saying, you can go to in any order that you want to. But the other thing was, they said that they didn't want you to think of this as a single player experience. And we know since E3 they've mentioned, I believe it was Miyamoto mentioned, that they wanted to make the next Zelda game after Breath of the Wild using Breath of the Wild's engine and make it a multiplayer game akin to Triforce Heroes. But in this game, they said they didn't want you to think of it as a single player experience, and they haven't mentioned anything about multiplayer with it. But one thing that I noticed, which would be the almost perfect way to introduce multiplayer without it really affecting the game, is the Wolf Link amiibo. When you tap it on the screen, you get Wolf Link beside you, who acts as sort of a side character helping you out. What if while you play with the Pro Controller, if the second player picks up the gamepad and taps Wolf Link, the Wii U will recognize that 2 controllers are connected to the system, and then the second player can use the gamepad to play as Wolf Link.
So don't get me wrong, I would love for it to be online multiplayer with like 4 players or cooperative local. I would definitely not knock on that whatsoever. The wording makes me a little iffy about it.
Yeah.
I think like where my mind went when he said that, because he could have just been outright saying like, oh, get ready for a multiplayer experience, you know, and
Right.
then you'd have, your expectation would be that much higher. But because he said don't think of it as a single player experience, where my mind went is something like Dark Souls, where players can leave down messages for other players, and it kind of enhances the experience. It's still single player, but there's a multiplayer element to it.
Right, and we kind of see that with like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, where we have the Miiverse integrated into the game, where you can leave a message in the bottle to either help out another player or just to say hi or something.
Right. And so I think they might expand on that a little further. I mean, that's just my guess, and maybe it's something similar to it, but not quite as blatantly ripping off Dark Souls either. But that's my idea, is that there's going to be a multiplayer element to it that enhances the single player experience, but not... I'd be very skeptical, but very pleasantly surprised if it was like just blatantly multiplayer.
Well, I thought the same thing before the reveal. I thought that they're introducing multiplayer elements and don't want you to think of it as a single player experience. I thought Dark Souls at first, but now that they introduced it, I was getting more of a vibe of Journey's multiplayer, because it's a PlayStation game where basically it randomly co-ops you with someone online. You don't know who they are. You don't meet them. You could not even interact with each other. You could just pass each other by and have your own single player experience, or you could help each other. And this and Breath of the Wild both have very similar art styles. So I was wondering, is that how they're going to integrate the multiplayer elements?
Yeah. So how would that necessarily work in this game? Because I know what Journey is, and in that game, it's basically just about going from one destination to another. In this game, there's actual combat, there's dungeons and mini dungeons to pass through. So would it be like the ghost of another player that you just see traveling by you, or what exactly would there be?
What I was thinking is I haven't really researched too much on what the Wolf Link companion does, but I was thinking
let me explain to sort of give you, it might change your mind or give you something to add to your statement. What the Wolf Link amiibo does in this game is it's connected to, in Twilight Princess HD they added the Twilight Dungeon, or whatever it's called, and when you complete that dungeon, it saves the amount of hearts that you have when you finish the dungeon to the amiibo. And then once you tap that amiibo into this game, it brings up a version of Wolf Link that has just as many hearts as you did when you completed the last dungeon. So if you finished with 3 hearts left or 10 hearts left, Wolf Link will have that amount of health. And you can only use it one time a day. So on Monday you can tap him in, he'll help you, he'll stay within a certain distance from you, but he'll hunt down enemies, he'll distract certain enemies if there's like a big group of enemies. Maybe he'll attack one while you'll attack another. He'll run and get certain objects for you, I believe, like if there is certain food or like an apple or something, he can run and grab it for you, basically fetch, kind of like using a boomerang or something in the game. And he's completely independent, like you can't tell him what to do. He does, like he's his own AI. So what I was saying is, if a second player could just play as the Wolf Link for that one time on that one day, and then that would be it, instead of AI if there's 2 controllers. So
okay, I see where that goes. So I was wondering if there was going to be a mechanic in the game, non-prompted by a amiibo, where if someone with a Wolf Link amiibo could just join in your game as well. I don't know how that would work, because as you said before, the Wolf Link is independent, so there's a fine way to integrate a multiplayer experience into that, or a co-op experience rather.
Right.
And he just goes around, does his routines. There's like implied objectives that Wolf Link should do, like get food or get items, attack enemies, and all that. And it's basically a secondary companion, like you said before. It happens once a day. You just pop in, and there's rewards to do it. Just like in Dark Souls as well, to bring that back.
Right.
It could work like that.
So here's my theory. I have a new theory. It's after you beat the game, you have a Tingle mode, and Tingle goes into a dungeon, and he meets a Great Fairy, and what happens is the Great Fairy transforms him into a Navi companion, and you go into other people's games, and you just go, hey, listen to all the enemies. If you do it 100 times, you get 100 rupees. And once you get 100,000 rupees, you can finally become a fairy, like a true fairy for Tingle.
Each button on the gamepad has its own taunt.
Yes, exactly.
And then you use the stylus on the gamepad with the touchscreen to move Navi around the player.
There's an idea. And no shit harm.
Alright guys, so we've come to the end of our video, but for those that may be wanting to find out more about you or watch more videos produced by you, where could they go and what could they expect to see?
My name is Drake. I'm from the YouTube channel Drake Vagabond. I talk about Dynasty Warriors and history, and you can expect boredom and sleep.
That's an endorsement. My channel is She Says with a Z at the end, and if you come and check out my channel, we can explore some of your favorite games, including Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker. You might be able to see some things that you've never seen before. So if you come down to that channel, you might find something new.
Alright, and thank you all for watching, and please go and check out their channels.